Excited to get to game week. A lot of build up and a lot of things from last spring, to go through the spring, to go through the summer, to go through fall camp. Couldn't be more excited. I know as a head coach going to my 15th year, every season just a little bit different, but these guys have really been a joy to work with. The new additions, we had 40 guys going to fall camp that had never been with us through a fall camp. We probably have somewhere in the neighborhood of 20, 25 guys that will take their first snaps as Illinois football players on Saturday night, and a lot of that goes into, obviously their preparation, how they do things, but now to get it all coordinated and kind of play in a way that you need to play to beat a team like Toledo. Toledo's a very good football team, obviously picked to win the MAC again, and Coach Candle has done a tremendous job ever since he took over and has won more games in that league than anybody else. So a very difficult task in front of us. One I think our guys are excited to play. From a medical standpoint, obviously, it said Matt Bailey, and then the only other guy, Zeke Holmes, probably will not be with us on Saturday night. He's continued to get back and put himself in a position, but we're kind of pushing a pause button for him and just kind of letting that kind of get back underneath him. But he's been practicing with us last 2 or 3 weeks. Just had a conversation with him last night to take a pause, see where we're at after a couple of weeks and see where we go. So only other thing is there's a couple – unfortunately, during fall camp, happened actually a couple weeks ago. We've known about it for a while, but 2 guys, ironically, from the same high school, Malachi Hood, unfortunately, just kind of a routine play, non-contact, was decelerating, and he suffered a popped Achilles tendon. So he was a guy that was kind of really on the bubble of whether he was going to be with us, had done a really good job of getting himself ready last spring, all winter, all summer, and had a really good preparation to get to where we are, and he was a guy kind of on that bubble travel roster. Has just been awesome to see his growth. So unfortunately, he won't be with us this fall. And then on the same high school football team, ironically, Jordan Anderson in our last scrimmage kind of came out of a run and put his foot down. Unfortunately, popped his ACL, so he actually is in a rehab to get himself ready. Malachi's already had surgery. Everything went great. We're waiting for Jordan to kind of get himself in a position, and then he'll start his rehab process. Unfortunately for those guys, both of them redshirted last year, so excited to get them out there this year, but obviously we'll have to wait another year to see that kind of play out. So really that's it. Been very fortunate, I think, all spring and all summer and all fall camp to have a limited amount of guys miss with that time. Zai is cleared. Zai will be back with us Tuesday at practice, and shouldn't have anything moving forward with him. He's been great. A couple other guys with some nicks and bruises should be full go for Tuesday's practice. We actually went under the lights last night. Probably had one of our better practices of the year. Just guys are really crisp, flying around, clean. Really excited what I saw last night. We'll hit the practice field Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday and see where we go. So with that, open it up for questions.
No quarterback questions, but the availability list you can have submit a couple hours before the game. Big Ten just
the rule.
Yeah, what was your take? Did the coaches have to submit?
Yeah, kind of had that. I had a feeling that was kind of coming and trending in that direction. Really, since I came back into college football, when I was in the NFL, I was really amazed at the amount of volume of medical information that's released. But it's a different league up there, right? It's a business. There's certain protocols they got to follow all the way, starting back to. During the game week, they got to submit reports to do some things during the course of the week. This one's just literally on game day. And I would say, as a rule of thumb, as coaches, we probably know by Thursday to Friday, there's always going to maybe be once in a couple times a season where there's a guy that might be marginal. For instance, last year, getting ready for the Indiana game, I remember Julian Pearl got rolled up 2 days before the game. Really, no one knew about it. At first, they told us he was going to be out 2 to 4 weeks, and then we literally had to test him right before the game. He almost played, and unfortunately, he missed that game, but he came back for us the next week. So really, even in my time here, I can't see where this would actually draw much attention other than the normal stuff. But yeah, we'll kind of work our way through that. It's something that came about in the last couple of weeks. It had been talked about for a couple of months, but on away games, you travel 74, but what a lot of people don't realize is for home games, you can only take 74 to the hotel. So it's already kind of a 74-man roster. So all I see is us, if there's somebody that's on that roster that may or not be involved, for the 2 reporting levels, I think they're going to have either someone out or someone that could be questionable. Probably just a little more red tape for us to work through, but it's probably something in the long run might be better, especially in this day and age with all the gambling going around and everything else. I think that's probably the driving force more than anything.
I think Brian Kelly has talked about doing what the NFL does and releasing something on Tuesday and Thursday as well. I mean, do you see it getting to that point?
I personally wouldn't, but I do think that we'll do is what the conference of Brian Kelly can do, whatever Brian Kelly wants to do. I think for us, even in our league, I know last year there were a couple teams that reported injuries, and I kind of was always just amazed at how that kind of came out. I understand the whole side the world is dealing with right now with gambling and all that goes into it, but for me, I just kind of would rather, if there's information out there, that's out there, but if it's not out there, I don't really want it out there, so it is what it is.
Running back, it looked like Jordan was kind of up in that top 4 of the times that we were able to come in. So Jordan Anderson, what's the ripple effect of him being out?
Well, you guys probably saw limited action in the fall, but he when we started fall camp, unfortunately, he also tweaked his back a little bit, was coming back, had just come back from that. So really, since we started fall camp, I would say by far Josh and Reggie have taken the majority of the reps with the ones. With the twos and threes, it kind of just rotated between Caden and Aiden, and then Jordan had worked his way back into it. Unfortunately, as soon as he got back in there, it was pop. So the good side is those two guys that are kind of that next group of guys to go in. I would tell you, if you asked our offensive players for sure, and probably our defensive guys, if anybody wants to see those freshmen take their first reps, I bet you a lot of people would vote between Caden Fagan, Malik Elzy, and Aiden Lawfrey. They're probably kind of a tie for those three guys to watch their first snap in college football.
What are some things that you may worry about a little bit more in week one than you will later on in the season?
So there were 7 FBS games this past weekend, 7 teams that played FBS teams, and I made an edit that I showed our guys yesterday, and I knew a lot of them probably had watched the Notre Dame game. That was the most publicized one. Obviously, the USC game was an Apple TV game, so you had to have that all set up. But I took the San Diego State game. I took the UMass game. I took the Jacksonville State game, and kind of just showed, and then the other big one, Vanderbilt versus Hawaii in the first quarter. There were 3 special teams things that really were a big impact in the game. Turnovers were huge. So I always take the world of college football to show our guys what they can do. So I think you just worry about those things, guys that haven't taken their first snaps. We have a new special teams coordinator. Dish has been an unbelievable breath of fresh air, just really some of the ideas, thoughts. I was really intrigued at his time in Georgia with the punt team. They've kind of done it differently than we've done it here. So with a 2-man shield, moving that, getting 3 flyers, that's a little different look. I think anything that involves, our defense and the changes since a year ago, right? There's going to be some strengths of what we do up front. I think in the back end, there's some guys that have played a lot of good football, but I'm sure everybody's excited to see what the back end can bring. So they're just natural things in an opener that you always talk about.
What's unique about getting ready for a night game and then multiple night games?
Yeah, so 4 of our first 6, and then they're kind of just play the games as they play. So our last 2 weeks 0 games have been during the day, right? So that was what our first 2 preps, but we prepped a lot at night. So I don't think it's really any different. We practice in the morning now, but we're obviously in tune with what goes on. That we're going to play day games, night games. Penn State games already scheduled at noon. So I don't think, for me as a head coach now going to my 15th year, the time of the game isn't such an important task as getting your guys ready to understand what that means, right? Like at night, here in Memorial Stadium, the effect of that stadium is a lot different than maybe next week when we go to Kansas. Just wind can be a factor here that is a little bit more significant. But I don't really see the time of the game being a factor, but more just get our guys ready. I thought we were really fast last night, and now we want to keep that. Our legs were fresh. Guys talk about how good they feel. I think we really want to have that be in full effect Saturday night.
In the week 0 games you were able to note, did you notice the first down rule playing an impact at all and how you guys prepare?
Yeah, I think it'll eliminate, what they did it for was they were trying to eliminate total volume of reps and make the game a little more consistent as far as length of time. In college football, you can get a game that's 2 hours and get a game that's 4.5 hours, right? And that makes it hard for the TV people to kind of manage it. But for us, we've really talked a lot about how that is going to change. They'll get conditioned to that clock isn't going to stop, and it's not really going to take effect, and it won't become a glaring to them until maybe like a 4-minute mark, the middle 8, and then especially when it clicks past that 2-minute 1:59 mark, it's going to it's going to significantly, and you saw it, this past weekend. USC, I believe, got the ball with 1:35 in the first half. Had all 3 timeouts. San Jose State had 2 timeouts, if not 3, and USC kind of stalled out. Had a sack. They had burned 2 timeouts. One was the play clock was rolling down. One was the clock on the punt team on a backed up was running out. They had to burn 2 timeouts. San Jose State gets the ball on the 45-yard line, have a couple plays, then they hit a big second down shot, and they score, I believe, with less than 15 seconds, and never use that 1 timeout. So there's some really good educational football out there if you want to take advantage of it, and hopefully we'll do that.
What kind of jumps out at you about Toledo on both sides of the ball?
Well, without a doubt, just the way they're coached. Coach Kendall, just very impressed. The success he's had, it doesn't come by chance. He's got really good players that play really good football. We always talk and preach about good football plays, the result of good fundamentals, and it screams on their film all over the place how well they're coached, how well they're disciplined. Offensively, there's no doubt. Finn, like number 7, is a very dynamic, incredibly gifted athlete that makes good decisions with the ball. He's very effective on early downs. He can make something special on any given play. I always say the greatest value of a great quarterback is someone who can make something of nothing. And sometimes the answer isn't always clear, and then he makes something that isn't there. And he's very, very difficult to defend in that regards. They got perimeter players. They got a couple wide receivers that are very gifted. They got a running back that's very dynamic. They got an Outland Trophy watch list person up front. On the defense side of the ball, on the perimeter especially, they got a couple really good DBs, a safety, a corner that are exceptional. They got an active middle linebacker. Special teams, they've actually had a transition as well. Their special teams coordinator came from South Carolina and had been at Kansas State. So just to learn and study and watch him over the last several stops he's had has been pretty impressive. So not really one thing that you got to, say just one thing. They're just extremely very talented. They got, I believe they have somewhere close to the same number of players up for national award lists that we have, which is very impressive. And to watch those guys play, it's going to be a tremendous task in front of us right away.
Reggie played last year, Reggie Love. What does this opportunity mean for him, and what's he bring to you guys?
Reggie and Josh both, I think the neat thing for me is just the growth they've had from a year ago. I think both those guys last year going into the year were kind of battling for that spot behind Chase, and unfortunately both of them kind of had some injury setbacks during the course of the year. Josh, got the knee bruise early. As soon as he got healthy, he got tangled up over on the sideline. Reggie kind of had a couple things pop up during the course of the year. Obviously, Chase had an exceptional year. So I think those two guys, knowing and owning where they started last winter, jumping into the spring, obviously a new coach in Thad. I've bragged a lot about the 4 coaches I've hired. Thad in his presence, his knowledge of the game, his understanding, his ability to coach. I think it's really taken those 2 players especially to a different level than they've been at, and really impressive to watch that happen. And then obviously the real tell, come Saturday. What's been really fun for me, and I know Thad's aware of it, and Barry and I were talking during the course of the spring, and then during the summer when we kind of it's just the interaction between those 2. They both cheer for one another. They both, push each other, but also understand the value in those 2 knowing what's going on, because they literally give feedback all the time, and I'm excited to see this work out on game day.
Can you compare your comfort level now to, as opposed to opener 2 years ago, opener last year? Do you have a reference there for you?
Bob, I get the question, but to me, it's literally every year is just a little bit different, right? We have 3 quarterbacks that none of them have played a snap for Illinois football, right? That's even though BP going into my first year had been a multi-game starter, right? You just have that comfort level with someone you've been in there with. Now, what I am excited about, right? I do think our guys have worked very hard. They're very diligent. The work they put in with Tank to be in condition where they are, for us to play the way we played through spring, summer, and fall, and to have as few injuries just tells me they think the right way. But until the bullets start flying, it really, each season is kind of the same. I'm not going to be surprised by certain things I'm going to see, right? There's going to be a really good play, and we can't get too high. And there's going to be a really bad play, and we can't get too low. We got to handle adversity. As coaches, we got to handle the moment we're living in. Excited to watch our guys respond, excited to watch our coaches respond. And we have a unique challenge this week, right? And believe me, there is nothing more we've focused on the last 10 days in Toledo, right? But as soon as that game's done, we really got to turn the page very quickly, because Kansas is a short week without a day off. So, once you jump into the season, it's all all bars are set and all tones are leveled out, and you just kind of got to focus on the day ahead.
Along those lines, I'm curious if there's any ways that you felt the outside perception of this program change as compared to where you were that
Yeah, that's one that's easy to see, and something I've been really guarded against. For me, I've always kind of tried to, as a head coach, I think you got to be ahead of where you're at, and I kind of had a steady crescendo. I knew a lot of our guys were up for national awards. I know that we, received votes to be ranked, right? Like we didn't get ranked, but we beat teams that were ranked, right? So I kind of made note of all of that. Toledo, we refer to them, they're the MAC champs, all right? Like there's no denying what they've done and what they've been able to do in college football has been pretty impressive. So I'm balancing that all the time, but the part that we as coaches got to be aware of now is just the immediate access to our players have to tell them, letting people tell them how good they are, right? Like Johnny Newton's doing a podcast for the Heisman, right? And I'm like, holy cow, right? Like when Bret came to me with that, I'm like, all right, we got a D lineman, it's in the Heisman race, right? Like, I mean, so some of these things are new chartered waters. I've had some pretty good D linemen. I've never had one in the Heisman race before the year started, right? So like whether there's reality to that or not is reality to them. They called and asked, right? So I'm very guarded about what our guys are hearing and making them understand. Like I keep calling them wish list, not watch list, right? Like they wish you to be good. I wish you to be good. You wish yourself to be good, but really what you do is going to determine how well you get rewarded. So I think we got a hungry football team. I think we got a group of guys that really want to work. I think they understand the ability to be humble is a really good trait. Last year we were a 7-1 team that, finished the year 1-4, and there are a lot of different things that probably factored into that. But we got to keep the edge that we're in every game. We got to have not one chip on our shoulder, but two, and that's how we got to play.
How do you feel about the staff you put together over the 8 months? You guys have all been together leading into the season.
Yeah, just super excited. The 4 new guys that we brought in, I think it's been pretty seamless just how they fit into our building. But each one's uniquely different. Charlie and Antonio on both sides of the ball. One I've known since he's been 16 years old, and one I've known for, indirectly for 4, 5, 6 years. But both of them have had a huge impact in our room offensively. Thad and Dish are both very gifted in what they do. Obviously, Dish has the aspect of being a special teams coordinator, so the value he brings, like I said, just he's been at Georgia, he's been at Tulane with great success last year. He called every one of those reps, right? He actually worked with Coach Candle at Toledo for 4 years, right? So he's got some inside knowledge there of how things happen there. But to see that special teams effect here would be kind of cool. And then Aaron to be the new role as a coordinator, right? I think start off a game like this with a quarterback that's as dynamic as he is and as accurate as he is as a thrower, as efficient he is as a play caller. It's pretty impressive to watch him put together a game plan, see where it's at. But on the flip side of it, like a lot of support staff, we've really done some nice things in recruiting. So even though that doesn't show up immediately on game day, it shows up eventually. Like I think our recruiting department with Pat Embleton, in conjunction with Pearson and Jay Kaiser, and we've added a couple other guys in that room, has been very impressive. This morning, knocking on my door at 7:30 this morning with Jimmy Leonard, right? Like just to hear some things that he saw last week during the course. He's just got eyes from above, right? He's not on the grass, and it's very valuable to have some thoughts come out of his mind on offense, defense, special teams, as well as opponent preparation. So really a fun time in our building, like to be in the Smith Center every day. It's literally probably one of the most enjoyable atmospheres I've ever been in as a head coach. Like just really a lot of fun. Now we haven't lost a game, right? So everybody's happy. But it's just a really cool building to be in.
With Jordan out, you're down to 4 running backs.
Yeah.
I know you lost the walk-on kid as well.
Mm-hmm.
In an emergency situation, God forbid, you have to go deeper. Do you have an emergency team? I know Johnny and Keith will want to do it, but
Fidanzo, we moved Fidanzo, who has been there the last 2 years since I've been here. I really like Nick and what he's brought. And actually last year during fall camp, he jumped out at one scrimmage, and that's why it drove me to move him, right? I didn't need him to be our 5th, 6th string running back. I thought, I'd get him on the field. So we tried him in the spring, a little bit of safety and linebacker. And then literally before Jordan ever happened, I had gone to Nick and just said, hey, like, I think this might be better for you to come back over here, get you involved in special teams. And he was more than open to it. And then he literally got in that last scrimmage and did really, really well. So in my career, I've never had to really go past the 3rd or 4th guy. But to have a fifth guy in that capacity. If we we have several other guys that have played running back besides Johnny Keith that could probably do it on deep. For us, Jaheim Clark is a freshman that's going to play for us on defense, but he's given us some great reps because he kind of simulates athletically some of the things you see Finn do. We have probably on the offense side of the ball. Offensive line, we won't have a true freshman, but really at running back, you have two freshmen, Caden Fagan and Aiden Lawfrey. And then at wide receiver, three guys, Malik Elzy, Kanari Welcher, and Sean Miller. Those five guys are pretty much involved in the game plan that have never taken a snap here at Illinois. And then obviously, on the defense side of the ball up front, Jeremiah Warren at outside backer, Mason Moragan at inside linebacker, James Kreutz at safety, Mac Rosetich, Nicario Harper, Clayton Bush, Demetrius Hill will all get reps. They're taking their first snap on the perimeter. Jaheim Clark, Sabor, Prince Ford, and Zach Toby. There's a number of guys that we've recruited over the last 2 years that are going to be heavily involved in a Big Ten football game. I know it's they're coming from the MAC, but this is a Big Ten football game in our stadium that we gotta be ready to play in, and to have that environment for our guys and to see them play is going to be very rewarding.